Hey everybody, my name is Isaac. This is the Colony Drop podcast where we talk about everything regarding Gundam, from the models to the shows to anything else that's new and interesting. I'm here with my co-pilot, Brian.
Hello everybody, and today we're going to talk about what is the state of Gundam in America today, as well as how can Sunrise make it bigger and better and give us more Gundam.
Interesting.
So, what do you feel the state of Gundam is in America today, Isaac? Do you feel we are ascending, declining?
We are ascending using almost all of our vernier thrusters. And I'll tell you why. We are doing this because Gundam is available on a lot of the major streaming channels, Netflix, Hulu, probably Amazon. And that's pretty important as far as exposure for Gundam. Also, I mean, the models are, they've always been interesting and entertaining. That's not necessarily going down, but the models kind of go hand in hand with, the shows. And there's a lot of shows available right now on streaming. What do you think, especially compared to years ago?
Well, that's right. So we went over all those shows on streaming or available on streaming in the last episode. I think that's a big indicator of where we're going with Gundam. I do think that Gundam was maybe declining a little bit before the whole streaming era started. So maybe in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, before streaming was like super huge. I feel like Gundam going into the early 2000s had a big push due to all the UC series coming over, and then Seed coming out right after that push. But then I feel like, the UC series didn't catch on super big, and Seed came and went. And I feel like Seed did pretty well on Toonami. But then after that, I feel like there was a little lull. But now I feel like you said, the streaming is giving everything a little bit of a revival, especially with Unicorn.
Yeah, absolutely. UC is, to an extent, you kind of have to dig up the show to keep watching it, or know the whole thing know everything that happened in that timeline. You have to watch really old shows. It doesn't really do Gundam too many favors if you're someone that doesn't like old anime or just old shows in general. But as far as new stuff, it's a great time to be able to watch Gundam in America. It's on Netflix. There's 2 shows on Netflix.
But do you think that Gundam is where Sunrise wants it to be in America?
No, I think Sunrise would ideally like Gundam to be as, iconic and recognizable as, say, Star Wars or Star Trek. But that's, realistically speaking, yeah, Gundam is like that in, Japan, where it's much more recognizable and it's pretty much their Star Wars. But here, it's going to take a while for people to look at that and not see, Japanese anime robot, and instead think, oh, I definitely know what that is. That's a Gundam.
Right. So what do you think the best way to get to the American audience is? What has America loved over the last 100 years?
Over the last 100 years?
Yeah. What is America best at? What is one of our best exports?
I don't know. What is one of our best exports?
Blockbuster films.
That's true. Yeah. We're pretty good at the massive action films, right? Over the top, sparkling explosions.
Yep, that's right. We specialize in exporting Michael Bay explosions to other countries.
Where do they love them? In China.
So in 2018, Sunrise announced that they will be making a live-action Gundam movie produced by, or probably co-produced with, Legendary Entertainment. So that's the producer who made the Pacific Rim titles and the new Godzilla MonsterVerse series. So Godzilla, Kong, Skull Island, and whatever the last one was called.
King of the Monsters.
Oh yeah, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I think we can all agree those movies were fun.
Yeah, they made money at the box office, I think, and
yeah,
people enjoyed it.
And particularly Pacific Rim seems like a good match, given that it's the only franchise I can think of that has successfully put giant robots on the screen in a believable manner, and people enjoyed it.
Pretty much. I mean, well, there was that Power Rangers movie that came out not too long ago, and that they're remaking a Power Rangers movie soon. So we're going to see a Megazord again. But, I mean, a live-action Gundam movie sounds awesome. I mean, okay, here's my concern. My concern, all right. So remember there's going to make an Akira movie?
Which one? Because they've been trying to make an Akira movie, I think, for 30 years now in
Be
Hollywood,
Akira,
and
yeah.
it still
Well,
hasn't happened.
right. But my point is, okay, are they gonna like put the Gundam in like Washington D.C. or something, and then like I don't know, the pilot is Anthony Ray or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid concern, right? Because
It's gonna get
while
like whitewashed, for lack of a better phrase, American washed, what have you, West washed, instead of being close to what it should have been and staying close to the story.
yeah, I think those are all valid concerns because Pacific Rim, Godzilla, look, I saw those films. I really enjoyed them. They don't definitely don't have the same weight to me as a Gundam story does. So I'm a little wary that maybe Gundam needs to be about giant robots, but it also needs to be yeah, I don't want to call those movies bad movies because they're not bad movies, but Gundam needs to be a good movie, if that makes sense.
They were definitely shallow films, I must say. Gundam is anything but shallow, and even if it's a film topping out at 2 hours, maybe longer, I don't think you can cram the 1 year war in that time frame. I mean, was this going to be like part one, and they hope like to keep doing more?
There are no plot details still. There is no
Okay.
title. So really we know nothing about it. Legendary, they have made films along the line of what we're talking about that have depth, that they're good. So for example, they made the Jackie Robinson movie 42, which was a really good movie. And they've taken some good steps, I think, for this film. They've hired Brian K. Vaughan to write it. He's probably one of the most well-respected comic writers from the last 20-ish years. So he's written the comic series Why the Last Man, Ex Machina. He created Marvel's Runaways, which is now a Hulu show. But he currently writes a very highly acclaimed comic called Saga. So they hired him. I mean, he's a great writer. I trust him based on his work. I feel like hopefully the fandom trusts him as well. But I do agree with the last thing you said, which was I don't know how you cram the 1 year war into one movie. Do you think they do? Because again, there's no plot details. We don't know if it's a Universal Century side story. We don't know if it's an existing alternate timeline, or if it's just going to be something completely original. If you had to guess, what do you think they're going to do?
I'm going to guess one of two things will happen. Here's option one. They pretty much take something that already exists and condense it, or at least use the best parts in whatever, the 2 hour movie that it's going to be, if that. All right, maybe they're going to condense, I don't know, Seed, or, maybe they'll take the actual 1 year war or whatever. For all we know, it's going to be a story about like a kid in Build Fighters, so that the kid can relate to it, and then maybe marketing hopes that the kids watching the movie end up, going out and buying their own models, whatever. Okay, so that's option one, where they pretty much copy an existing series or movie that already happened. Option two is they make something wholly for the US/international market. So it can be, maybe make nods to previous things that happened in other series, but it can be completely on its own. It could even be based in our real world where, I don't know, the military builds a Gundam for whatever reason, and, it fights, I don't know, Rogue Nation Gundams or something. Rogue Nation mobile suits, for all we know. So
Sounds an awful lot like your favorite series, Mobile Fighter G Gundam.
Oh boy, yeah. If I had to bet, though, I'd say we'll see everything Gundam iconic, but condensed somehow for an American viewer. We'll see colonies, we'll see space travel, beam sabers, the story of somebody inevitably finding a Gundam and becoming its pilot, probably a rivalry with some type of red mobile suit. And yeah, it'll be Gundam by the numbers, but condensed and Hollywoodified, if you may, using our usual slew of, I don't know, Liam Neeson as the captain, and then
Oh yeah.
yeah, I don't know who gonna get for the pilot.
Oh, that's a
Zac
whole
Efron as the Gundam pilot.
that's a whole episode right there we can do. Yeah. Assuming that they were to redo the Universal Century, we could just do fan castings for the whole. Right. Oh, that's gold. Yeah,
the
we'll
moment we find out what they're kind of basing it on, if they are, then we're gonna just start pulling actors left and right, and actresses.
Yep. So I think
Char, Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Too old.
No, he's too old.
Yeah.
I think Char was supposed to be 19 in the original Mobile Suit Gundam.
Of course.
So yeah, I guess we'd have to choose. Even Zac Efron would be too old now. I think he's in his
Yeah.
30s at this point.
All right, we'll look at the cast of whatever high school movies people
Yeah.
are watching now.
So whatever
Look at the cast of All American.
whatever the current Disney Channel people are. But yeah, I think that's a good point. You're right. We'll probably hit all the high points. You'll probably have a young boy / or maybe even a female lead. I don't know.
Maybe anything's on the table. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in a new age in Hollywood. Anything can happen. Interesting.
It could be a good opportunity. I don't think Gundam has really had a super strong female lead character where I would say there's definitely a lot of strong female characters in Gundam. I don't know if any of them are really the main character.
Am I correct in thinking we've never had a single female lead pilot?
0080 had Christina McKenzie.
She wasn't the main character.
Yeah,
No.
well, she was like the main character on the Federation side, but yeah, I would agree.
She wasn't the
Bernie
Gundam
or
pilot.
whatever was the main character.
I
don't think so.
Long overdue.
Before I definitively make that statement, I think I'd have to think about it, but I think you're right.
For sure, it's a no. Yeah.
So that could seem likely to me, especially with the success of like Star Wars recently with Rey. They could be looking into that. So I do think we're gonna get, like you said, all the highlights, young protagonist, antagonist with a red mobile suit,
Exactly.
beam weapons, definitely something with colonies and hopefully a colony drop.
Quasi-fascist villains.
Right. Yeah.
Possibly
Particularly
from
in
a
today's
colony.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a story about immigration. Very topical.
Inequality. The colonists not being equal
Yeah.
to the Earthborn elite.
Yeah. I just don't know how you fit a whole 1-year war into a 2-hour film and do it well. So that does concern me. So
Yeah.
maybe it'll be
There's no
somewhat
way.
of a smaller scale conflict.
Or worse, Brian, would be it's about humanity or whatever the U.S. government building a Gundam to fend off an alien invasion.
Oh no! If we go there, oh man, I
We
believe
have
Sunrise.
to see it regardless.
Oh, we're definitely gonna see it. I mean, I believe Sunrise is involved, so I doubt they would approve an alien angle. But
You mean
never
like they
know.
approved one with Double O?
Well, but at least in 00,
That kind of alien approval.
at least in 00, that was that wasn't the main thing that they were presenting to the American audience as the first full-length feature film.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. They only showed up in one movie.
Yeah. You got
They were pretty nebulous as a threat until the end, but yeah.
Exactly. Now, granted, there has been a live-action film before. When I was looking this up, I was funny because I was reading the original Deadline article. It was either Deadline or Variety, whichever one. And he did say, it'll be the first live-action Gundam feature film, and I was like, well,
no,
that's
it
not
won't.
exactly true. There was this, as we
Nice
discussed
try,
last
Sunrise.
episode, there was this great piece of filmmaking done called G Savior. But I do think no one remembers G Savior at this point, right? So if you're Sunrise,
do.
well,
Some of us do, Brian.
I think they've already got us. I don't think this film is for us. So you have to think, right, that Sunrise they're going to put their best foot forward with this.
I hope they march every producer and writer and the director into a small theater and then show them G Savior, and then the angry board of directors at Sunrise just starts yelling at people in Japanese when the movie's over, and the message gets across that they can't repeat any of that in any way.
Yeah, so I feel like this is Sunrise trying to make a big move for particularly the U.S. market, as well as whoever other markets who love live action blockbuster films, because I wonder if they were emboldened after the Gundam appeared in Ready Player One. Do you think that gave them more or less confidence in this project?
I mean, that was such a fun but small Easter egg. I wonder how many people that actually saw Ready Player One. I don't think it made a huge amount of money. I think it did well. How many people saw it and were like, "Oh, Japanese robot"? And how many of us were like, "Oh, of course, we knew it would be here." It's a Gundam.
It did pretty well. It made about almost 600 million at the box office.
Okay, good.
So I think it did pretty well. I don't think there was you're right. I don't know that everyone watching it knew what it was.
Right.
But I don't think that anyone left that theater not thinking, that was pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was so much testing the waters though for Gundam specifically, But I mean, it looked good on screen. I mean, it
Yeah,
looked,
I agree. I don't think it was a test. I mean,
why not?
I think it
Yeah.
was more just if you had to be happy, right? If you were Sunrise and you saw that,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that, as far as I'm aware, I've never seen really negative reactions to the Gundam's appearance in that film.
No,
Um,
no. That film, I mean, anybody watching that film, I imagine that had a general idea what it was about, knew that they were going to see a lot of, kind of nostalgia, kind of geek nerd culture, sci-fi stuff. And that was just, a cherry on the sundae.
right.
Yeah.
Another way to look at this is they've hired Brian K. Vaughan, which is great, but he's not necessarily in charge of the film. He's just the writer, because that's not how Hollywood works.
Of course
So the
not.
producer of this film is a man by the name of Cale Boiter. So I don't really know anything about him other than what IMDb can tell us.
That sounds like the pilot of like a GM or something.
Yeah,
Cale Boiter, he's going to provide combat support.
but it's from what a quick search on him, because I think you can get a sense of films based on their producer, because they're sort of in charge of where the film goes. And
Right. The shot caller, the big
yeah.
cheese.
Yeah, exactly. So the films he's done that he's famous for are Noah, Detective Pikachu, Dune, the one that has not come out yet. I believe it must be film. Pacific Rim Uprising, so that was the sequel. I don't
Mixed
believe
reviews. Yeah.
he worked on the first one. I personally felt the first one was better than the second one. And Journey to the Center of the Earth, I think, is the other one that he's known for. He's obviously worked on a lot more than that. Oh, he worked on Wedding Crashers. Well, he gets my vote then. Oh, and The Butterfly Effect. I think that was another one that he was supposedly famous for.
Wow. Okay.
So hopefully, Mr. Boiter pulls it through. I think he already did a good job if he was in charge of hiring Brian K. Vaughan. I have no idea if Brian K. Vaughan's even a Gundam fan. I assume he is to take the job.
I imagine a skilled writer would be able to maybe absorb the material he needs and then, put out a quality script.
Right.
Especially with his, he deals with some heavy stuff and Why the Last Man and some of his other work. So I'm optimistic about him, and then everything you just told me about Kale, I'm optimistic about him too.
I agree. So I feel like at this point, it's still okay to be hopeful. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You know what? We can be hopeful until we start hearing otherwise. I mean, if the critics start saying like, "Oh God, this was it was a hot mess and a train wreck," then we can walk into the theater kind of thinking, "Okay, we should expect the worst and just kind of enjoy the nonsense." But let's stay hopeful until we have reason not to. I'm kind of excited. I mean, it's one thing to go into the theaters, even small theaters, and see a Gundam movie. It's another thing to go in and see like a live action movie in a big theater.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And some fans, maybe some listeners who are a little bit younger, maybe they don't have a reason to be skeptical. But for those of us who maybe have been around a little bit longer and saw G Savior, the prospect of a blockbuster live action movie, that's always been, I think, a dream. I don't know that we ever thought that would actually happen.
No, for those of you listening who have no idea what G Savior is, G Savior came out in the late 90s, I believe, and it was live action Gundam. It was a direct to DVD movie. Oh boy, where do I begin? Okay, there's like, it's just like really dated computer graphics that they used for the Gundams, and the story was kind of a mess. It was very much a made for TV movie type fight feel to it, and low budget, and overall not very quality. It's maybe the lowest quality anything Gundam now that I think about it. I mean, even some of the short series had better quality, or series that got canceled early, like Gundam X, compared to G Savior, it's night and day. It doesn't even feel like Gundam, really.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time, but I believe that was more of a test on Sunrise's part of like, can we do this, than maybe more of a test than a super serious effort. But it ended the way it ended, and here we are.
You know what? Sometimes when you test something, you get out what you put into it, and they put in the bare minimum into that movie.
Hey, look, in the movie business, you got to recoup your investment, man. You can't let it sit on the shelf.
I imagine they recoup their
their $20 bill.
Yeah, I hope they made it back in like the 10 DVDs that they sold.
I actually bought one, so
You know what? Anybody out there who's listening to this, if you're a fan of G Savior or you really enjoyed it, not even really enjoyed it, if there's a lot of it or part of it that you enjoyed, please contact us or leave a comment. Tell us what you enjoyed about G Savior. Was it the acting? It couldn't be the mobile suits. Do you really feel an appreciation for the G Savior or the silhouettes or any other junk?
I would like to point out that it's only episode 3 of this podcast, and we've already talked about G Savior, and I think every episode.
It's hard to ignore. It's like an accident on the side of the road. Like you're gonna look at it as you go by.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, did you see that? Like, yeah, I did. We have to go on with our day, but I did see it.
Just a flaming / burned out G Savior wreck on the side of the road.
Flipped over on fire. And you're like, oh well.
But no one
okay.
stops. No one stops to put it out.
No, we try to ignore it once we realize how bad it is.
Tamino just drives by when he sees it, lets it go.
He just shakes his head.
You should have filmed Guy Gear as he just drives away.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. God, Guy Gear looks so beautiful.
It looks very cool.
The designs to them are just awesome. For those of you that don't know what Gaia Gear is, Gaia Gear takes place in like way distant UC, far future, and the mobile suits look pretty different than anything else in any Gundam series. They're very kind of almost organic. I describe them bio-organic in a way.
I would say they look kind of like a 3-way cross between Gundam, the Guyver, and like Zone of the Enders or something.
That's a great, definitely a Guyver influence maybe there. It's very put it this way, if you had to grow Gundam or mobile suits, that's kind of what they look like.
Yeah, I don't even know if Guy Gear's canon anymore. I think that got overwritten or
probably. Well, it only existed in like written form, so
yeah.
If anything's in written form, whether it's like a novel or just a manga or comic or whatever, it's way easier to overwrite than if it was actually like an animated series. I feel. Yeah.
Or an early 2000s live action movie named G Savior.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if they don't,
no one buys it, I guess. Maybe it doesn't exist.
You know what? I'm banning G Savior for the duration of this podcast. We can't be stuck on this. We have other stuff to talk about. What else should we talk about, Brian?
So I guess going back to this, the live action film where we're hopeful. What are your I would love it if they did this, and the opposite, your please, if anything, do not do the following things.
Please do not do a forced, unconvincing, unnecessary love story. We don't need, the pilot that just found the Gundam to also fall in love with his or her new lover and then, I don't know, a hug or a kiss before the final battle, blah, blah, blah. It's too much. It should just be about them finding the mobile suit and then, going off on the adventure. What I want to see is, I want to see a really good space battle. I feel like if they're trapped just on Earth fighting, it's not going to be too Gundam-y. It's going to be very Power Rangers-ish, too much. We're going to have, they take out the sword and then they're still fighting on the ground and then he slays the one enemy mobile suit. Yay. And, they're destroying buildings at the same time, right? When they're fighting, because they're always fighting in the city. They're always knocking over these damn buildings.
But if it's Angel Grove, that means everyone's going to evacuate.
Exactly. Conveniently. But if they're in space, we get those awesome space battles with like the different fleets, mobile suits doing all those crazy maneuvers and all the beam weapons. It will look pretty awesome, I think, especially based on everything you told me about Kale. Like we could almost get like a Saving Private Ryan of Gundams. Like it's really gritty and, but at the same time, very sci-fi kind of action fun. Yeah,
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. I don't know that we've had, outside of like Star Wars, big space battles they could use space battles as like a defining feature of the film.
Okay, yeah. All right, I know we just had Star Wars movies come out, but come on, everybody, we could have used some more space battle.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think anyone would turn down more space battles, right? Especially, for example, in Pacific Rim, there are no space battles.
No.
So that's one way to make it not feel like Pacific Rim. that also goes back to the whole, I don't know how you fit all this in, because like in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, they start in space, go to Earth, go back to space. You probably, in only 2 hours, you probably can't go back and forth too much.
No, I mean,
So we're gonna get we're gonna get one trip, right? Either space to Earth or Earth to space.
I'm concerned we might get one battle. For all we know,
Agree.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. For all we know, it's going to be about the pilot, being told he has to, oh, there's this new weapon you have to learn. Like, oh no, I must be in the cockpit of my starfighter or whatever. And then it's about him training and learning. And then I don't know, we have a Top Gun kind of thing where he falls in love with his trainer or whatever. And then at the end, it all leads to a final battle with the evil red mobile suit that's been plaguing their forces, and he defeats it at the end, and roll credits.
Right.
No, Gundam is about war, so there's going to be multiple battles within a single war, and we really have to capture the scale of that, because so much of those battles in the series, any series really, are kind of about the pilot getting trained, has to fight this mobile armor, then he has to fight this group of mobile suits, then he has to fight, this fleet using this weapon, and blah, 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 and just keeps going and going and going, building up, and that's how the suit gets upgraded, the pilot gets better, and, the show keeps raising the stakes as it moves on.
I think you had mentioned before you were wondering if they had maybe planned this to be a series of movies.
Yeah.
I mean, they've not announced that. And I'm sure in their mind they would love it if it was successful and they could make more films, but they definitely won't make that decision until they at least have a finished version or close to finished version of the film, because that would be. Yep.
All right. Can you make the One Year War in 3 2-hour movies? Can you do it in 2 2-hour movies?
Well, you could definitely do it in 3 because there are the Mobile Suit Gundam compilation films.
Right, but I mean, movies are kind of different.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do it in 3. Could you do it in 2?
I would do it. I would definitely say you could do it in 3. You'd probably have to use some time lapses.
Yeah.
To just assuming that you start with a sort of novice pilot, the whole 3 movies can't take place over 3 days. Like they would need to show that this kid's been fighting for months or whatever and has gotten really good at what he's doing, or she's doing.
True.
But 3 movies definitely seems more doable than 1. But I think the only problem is they don't know if they're going to get 3 movies, and so they're only going to greenlight 1, and that would be so this whatever movie they're making has to stand alone, because it could just fail. Like it would be way too ballsy to spend $300 million or $200 million on part 1 of something that you don't know you're going to get to release the next 2.
There's no way I think it couldn't even be a side story, because that would kind of be robbing the Gundam from the audience in a way. We can't do a side story in the UC. There's too much backstory for people that you assume that they know. So it'll have to be about a Gundam.
I agree. It'll definitely be about a Gundam. What if they did so this leads into my what don't I want, and what would be my dream scenario. So what I definitely don't want is aliens. I think we already covered why. If they, yeah. I swear, if they release the log line and it's like, humanity creates the Gundam to fend off an alien invasion at that point, I don't know what the difference is between this and Pacific Rim.
Oh God, can you imagine a scene where like, Gundam, what is a Gundam? It's for Global United Network Alien, military. Or they're like, oh God.
Yeah, that should be a bet. Will it or will it not be an acronym?
Oh God, you know what they would call the aliens too, right? Let's assume that there's these green tentacle things. They'd end up calling them the Xeon.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Xeon.
They're from planet Alpha Xeon.
Yeah.
And the Federation would be like a UN that just, we've been fighting them with our shuttles and our ships, but it's not cutting it, so we build a Gundam. Oh God.
I don't even know if I would see it. I don't know if I'd pay for it.
I'd bite the bullet.
Yeah.
I'd go for it.
You're right. I'd probably see it.
Yeah. I'd get plenty of candy. I'd get like a big icy, and I'd be like, all right, start the projector and let's get this circus started. Yeah. Put my feet up and say, yeah, show me this junk. Throw it at my eyes.
Could be so fun. But what my dream scenario would be, going back to this is only one film, and I don't know how you do the 1 Year War in one film. If it was some sort of side story like 8th MS Team, and you could do a very brutal is probably the wrong word, but almost like just treat it like a war film, almost like what you said earlier, Saving Private Ryan. Like, what if it was, an Apocalypse Now, but it was Gundam, and it had a lot of political commentary because, Brian K. Vaughan, he did a fair amount of political commentary in Y the Last Man, so it's something that he was pretty skilled at. So I don't know, could be a good fit. That's probably not what they're gonna do. I'm sure they want the big 1 year war blockbuster or equivalent.
So many good visuals in it. I mean, but you're right. Always MS Dream could be a great movie because there's so much you could remove. It would make it. It would have a less depth, but you could definitely make that a 2-hour movie. I mean, it's pretty much a team on a mission to take out a super weapon. So
exactly. It could be the Rogue One of Gundam.
Pretty much. Oh, there you go. Wow, Brian, goodness, you should write scripts. If this is successful, put together your 08th MS Team script.
Yeah, I feel like something shorter and more contained would maybe work better for the one film format.
We need a digestible story for an American audience.
Yeah.
It almost has to be for someone that's never heard of Gundam, never seen it, and likes science fiction or action movies. That's about it.
Yeah, that's probably their goal.
That's your jumping point.
This is for someone who's never seen
Gundam. We got to prepare for it to look different. There may be a scene where the Gundam carries a giant American flag. We don't know. as it fights some enemy nation.
Oh boy.
Plants it on a mountain.
and then in the sequel he fights Godzilla.
Probably. Or no, they team up.
To fight the Zeon invasion.
Of course, yes.
Oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Bad.
Yeah, probably. So anyway, we remain hopeful, I think, at this stage for this film. And
comment below if you have any thoughts about the movie, what you want to see, what you don't want to see, what you actually think will happen. Are you optimistic? Do you think it's going to be a train wreck?
I think if you're a Gundam fan already, then what you want to see versus what they're going to do are probably very different.
And also, I think a lot of Gundam fans can be forgiven for being pessimistic.
Right.
They probably think it's going to be butchered on screen. It's going to have like a terrible kind of, generic story or something like that. Or it's just not going to make sense. I don't know. A lot of things can happen. For all we know, they can start out great. And then on the cutting room floor, like the actual good story gets destroyed. We don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and we end up with Pacific Rim 3.
Which I hope not, because Gundams move lightning fast compared to those Jaegers.
So rounding this out back to the original topic of the episode was how, what is the state of Gundam America and how does Sunrise make it bigger? So I think, like we said, Gundam is ascending due to the advent of streaming. And how do they make it bigger? I think this is their answer for how to make it bigger to a general American audience.
True.
And that's the live action blockbuster movie. Everyone's going to go see it whenever it, I assume that this is going to be a summer movie, certainly.
Hopefully, yeah.
So that's that side. But the other side is maybe the other audience maybe is a little bit younger. They've grown up on streaming at this point. So that's probably people in their teens and 20s. The way you make it bigger there is just release a new series and put it on Netflix. Gundam Unicorn seems pretty successful. It's on basically every streaming service that it can be, probably intentionally by Sunrise, thinking this is our best UC offering we've got for a modern audience. So let's put it out there.
Yeah. It might be the best Gundam series overall. And I don't mean, how can you say that? The original is the series. Think about it. Right? It's got a really good story. It's got really good animation. It's just beautiful to look at and enjoy. And it's a complete kind of unit on its own because they talk about the past, and then you don't have to know too much to jump into it.
Exactly. So even if you don't know the history, you could want to watch it just based on the way it looks.
Yeah, they'll fill you in.
So they'll draw you in. So while I think the live action movie is how you get the general public to know what Gundam is, I think their other plan is to continue on the animation front by releasing something new. I think if you look at what they've done over the last 2-3 years, I think this is their real two-pronged strategy, because they announced that live action movie in 2018, and also in 2018 they announced what they called their UC Next 100 project. They didn't give a whole lot of details at the time, but basically it was this poster, and it said, we are going to take UC into the next 100 years after Charge Counterattack, after Unicorn. And that project was composed of three. There was supposedly three things announced. The first project it was called Gundam. It ended up being called Gundam Narrative or Gundam NT. Came out in 2018. It was a standalone film. It was basically the sequel to Gundam Unicorn. It like loosely adapted the last Gundam Unicorn novel, which involved some people searching for the third unicorn unit known as the Phoenix. It was basically like a gold unicorn. That film kind of has middling reviews. I don't know. I haven't actually seen it. It was released in American theaters, I think, for one day. So I think Sunrise and Right Stuff are putting it on Blu-ray this year, or if they haven't already. But certainly would be worth a watch if you've already seen Unicorn.
Might as well, yeah. I mean, God, those poor people in the UC, in the Universal Century. This war never ends.
It just keeps going, baby.
It's like we can't stop fighting now. There's one more Gundam.
Anaheim Electronics is always doing something.
But wait, we just had peace.
Nope. Got to make some more money. Put out another Gundam. The second project is what's basically coming up next. And that is Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway's Flash. So I think really Hathaway's Flash is their strategy on the streaming side, or basically the animation side, which can eventually go to streaming, to the maybe people who are more used to watching anime. And then, if you pair that with the live action movie, you're sort of expanding your audience in all areas. That way, if someone who's never heard of Gundam, which that's the person we think is their goal for the live action movie, they're going to watch that movie and say, wow, Gundam's really cool. And they get home from watching it, they're going to go to Netflix, and what are they going to see? They're going to see Gundam Unicorn, and then they're going to see something that comes right after Gundam Unicorn, which is Hathaway's Flash. So they can, get really into the movie, and then boom, they have a whole nother, each Unicorn OVA is like almost an hour, 45 minutes ish.
Something like that. Yeah. That feels like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's 7. Yeah, maybe I don't even remember how long they are. Maybe they're longer than that, but that's a whole nother 7 to 10 hours right there. Plus, they can watch Hathaway's Flash, which by then they'll probably all be out, and that'll be another 3 movies they can watch. So I feel like they're building up this sort of ecosystem that people can kind of play in. And so I think we should maybe talk a little bit about Hathaway's Flash, because I think that's something that we always thought was pretty neat back when we were reading about it, reading plot synopses of it back in the early 2000s. What do you remember about Hathaway's Flash?
What I remember about Hathaway's Flash is
without giving away the big spoiler.
Oh boy! All right. Well, it takes place in Universal Century after Char's counterattack, and it mainly focuses on Bright Noah and his son Hathaway.
It takes place in Universal Century 0105, which is 12 years after Char's counterattack, and I guess that would be 9 years after Gundam Unicorn. I think Gundam Unicorn's what, UC 96, right?
Yeah, Unicorn is pretty close right after Char's counterattack. And
so Hathaway's Flash is this is going to basically be a novel adaptation. So it was 3 novels written by the original creator of Gundam, Yoshiyuki Tomino. Those novels were released in 1988 through 1990. And those novels were actually a direct sequel to the novel version of Char's counterattack. And like Isaac said, so it centers on Hathaway Noah, who's the son of one of our favorite characters, Bright Noah, the captain of the white base from the original Mobile Suit Gundam. In Char's counterattack, he's kind of this, I don't know, how would you describe him? Like a good-natured kid?
He's naive and innocent for someone that's living in that universe.
Right, especially for someone whose dad is Bright Noah, right?
Well, Bright seems like the type of father that would very much shelter his children from the horrors of war.
Yeah, I guess maybe Hathaway was just like at home with Mirai the whole time, like he didn't really know.
I mean, Bright Noah's from Earth, so maybe he was allowed to go to Earth and just kind of avoid the worst of everything.
Yeah, could be.
Grew up on living in a green pasture. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess when the story starts, he's using a new name, Mafti Navu Aaron, and he's either joining or eventually going to lead a terrorist organization called Mafti. And that organization's goal is to fight against corruption in the Earth Federation, particularly due to the Federation starting to deport basically undesirables from Earth to the colonies. So basically, they're giving away the Earth to the privileged class, which you could argue there's a lot of parallels with that today. So it's a very timely release, I think.
I mean, I also thought the Federation did that way back when. I mean, pretty much everybody that's in a colony now is the descendant of someone that was undesirable, right? It always seemed like there was just such an undercurrent of hostility when people find out someone's like from Earth, you know? Like I forgot who Bright Noah ran into, but like in one of the first episodes, they're like, "Oh, you're one of the Earthborn elite" or something like
Yep.
that. They're very sarcastic about it. So
You're right. I think it's always
yeah,
been through dialogue. I think it was always pretty clearly established in the Gundam universe that if you were living on Earth and you were part of the elite or the privileged class.
yeah, or you're at least quite lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. In this series, he pilots what's called the Kasi Gundam, and the antagonist Gundam is called the Penelope. And we always liked these designs because they were made in the late 80s. There was like the peak of the what I would call like the elaborate 80s designs. They look ridiculous, but also ridiculously cool. They have like so many parts on them, and just it's pretty cool. You should look them up. There is something interesting here because Hathaway's Flash is a direct sequel to the novel version of Star Wars Counterattack. I looked up what the differences were between the novel version and the film version, and actually there's kind of a big one here, which really influences the story. So, slight spoilers for Star Wars Counterattack, but in the film, Amuro Ray's love interest at the time, Chan, she kills this girl named Quest Pariah, and that Quest is the girl that Hathaway has sort of fallen in love with in the movie over a period of 2 days. I think typical teenager love, right? I don't think they didn't know
Puppy
each other that
love?
long, right?
No, it was. They like ran into each other twice, I think.
Yeah, and then he knew that he just loved her or whatever. So anyway, he's out and he basically sees Chan like kill Quest, and that that obviously upsets him. But in the novel version of Star Wars Counterattack, which Hathaway's Flash is a sequel to, Hathaway is actually the one that accidentally, he kills Quest, but accidentally, and that apparently has a big impact on his decision to join this terrorist organization. You could certainly find a way to write around that. I just kind of found that interesting.
Do we know how long it's going to be?
So Hathaway's Flash has been planned to be a movie trilogy. I think basically just one movie for each novel.
Okay, I was going to say, from what I remember of the story, it's not a very long story.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be
It can't be 50
three.
episodes.
Yeah, no, it won't be a full series. I think there's been at least 3 trailers / teasers released. So there was one trailer released like early in 2019, which is actually really funny because in that trailer there was text on the screen, or either the narrator said it. The narrator was in Japanese, so I don't know what he said, but it said like, "Once thought impossible to adapt. This is we are now going to make Gundam Hathaway's Flash." And I just think that's a really funny thing for the for Sunrise to admit that they thought this story was never going to be adapted. I wonder why they thought that was, whether it's because it was the content or because of the mecha designs. But that's kind of funny to not only admit it, but then put it in your trailer.
The mecha is pretty over the top. I wonder how they're going to address it. If they're going to, what the hell they're going to say about it.
Yeah, I don't even for those of you who, I guess we can put links to the suits or whatever. But the Penelope, for example, it looks kind of like a dragon almost.
Yeah, it's like imagine a Gundam wearing like a cape.
Yeah, it's very strange. It looks super cool though.
It's so uniquely awesome.
Peak 80s elaborateness. And then there was another trailer release in later 2019, which actually shows you, I think it's the Penelope floating through or falling through either the inside of a colony or Earth. So you get a brief glimpse of it, and right away you can tell that it doesn't look like any other Gundam that you've seen before.
No, that silhouette looks like a mobile armor. If you were like a pilot, you saw that thing, you'd be like, really? They're bringing back mobile armors?
Well, if you were a pilot, you'd probably just fly the other way. You'd be like, well, that whatever that is, it's going to kill me, so I'm gonna leave.
I don't know. Mobile armors don't have a good track record. I think a pilot wouldn't be too scared if he had, especially if he had backup in the.
Well, they'd only have bad track records against Gundams, though.
You got me there.
If you're in a, I don't know what they're piloting at this point, like GM3s or something, or
no,
more
GMs are gone. GMs are gone. We're like in Noahs and Gigans and all that by now. The Gigans are probably gone too, or it's something else. I don't know.
That Penelope silhouette is like scary as hell, and it's pretty cool. So I can't wait to actually see it animated. And then they released another another trailer in late March of this year. So yeah, definitely encourage everyone to check that out.
If anybody's seen the trailer, do you think those guys we saw in the pirate mask and the pirate hats and skull mask were Crossbow and Vanguard?
I don't know. I think those are the well, I don't actually
Anti-Federation.
know. I mean, neither Isaac nor I have actually read Hathaway's Flash because I don't even know if you can find a translated version. But I assume that the person in the pirate mask or whatever you want to call it is either part of the Manhunter squad that is going and finding these undesirables to deport them, or that could be people from the MAFTI organization trying to hide their identity since they're terrorists or whatever. I know we had discussed maybe that was like some Easter egg for Crossbone Gundam or F91 or something like that. I did discover that I guess I don't know this for sure, but it does seem like Tomino, I think he owns the rights to Crossbone Gundam. I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that it's never been adapted. So I don't know if they would necessarily put any Crossbone stuff in there.
That's too bad because it looks so similar. It looks like it's from either, Crossbone Gundam or because Crossbone Gundam was a whole pirate ship of Crossbone people, or it's I don't know. Looks like it could be proto Crossbone Gundam people or Crossbone Vanguard. I don't know, but it looks. Yeah, now that I think about it, it probably would make more sense that they don't even lead into another story. That they just focus on it being, MAFTI or. I think the Federation Goons are called like the Manhunter Attachment or something like that.
Yeah.
MHA.
Yeah, I don't know if someone out there knows who the guy is in the mask. Let us know. Maybe you've gotten your hands on a translated version over the last 20. I guess this is a 30-year-old novel now. So someone out there has read it. It's been out 30 years.
Japanese listeners can chime in.
Yeah, they can tell us. So Hathaway's Flash is the second out of those three UC Next 100 project announcements. The third one, which was announced at the same time as the other two, but I don't think there's really been any more news on it since it came out. It was basically when that announcement was made, there was like this little timeline board, and you could see, Gundam narrative on it, and you could see Hathaway's Flash, and then there was something after it, and it was just labeled Gundam UC2, which would be a sequel to Gundam Unicorn.
It's pretty awesome, yeah.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense too, because Gundam Unicorn did fantastically well on pretty much all accounts. So it makes sense that they would want to make a sequel.
Why not? Continue the story. It looks so good.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of people's entry point maybe into UC Gundam. So
yeah,
I think it makes a lot of logical sense to continue the story as well as like fiscal sense. So yeah, but on that one, I couldn't really find any other news on that. So I think that's just, under wraps for the moment. And that makes sense. They probably want to focus on Hathaway's Flash first and probably want to focus your attention.
God, now that I think about it, all right, I don't buy models that much, but Hathaway's Flash has such unique looking models. I think I'm gonna have to go for it.
Oh yeah, definitely either want like the Kasi Gundam or the Penelope for sure. Yeah, can you imagine how much that master grade is gonna cost though?
We don't know. All right, there's a global recession. For all we know, we're gonna get lucky. I don't know, Sunrise. If you're listening and you want to send us over a couple of Penelopes, we'll live stream putting them together and talking about Hathaway's Flash.
We promise we won't break them.
Yeah. Oh man, what are the bad guys in? What does Mufti say? Xeon had Hail Xeon.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Probably something like Death to the Federation.
Probably.
Or Death to the Privileged Class. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that will be a nice change of pace, right? No Xeon involved for the most part.
Yeah, I mean
maybe not.
I
haven't read it, I guess, so maybe Xeon does crop up. But
burn the earth. Well, I'm sure people will reference it because they've been fighting Xeon for like 40 years. But from what I read, what kind of kicks off the story is Xeon, the Republic of Xeon, being brought back into the Federation.
We're gonna get you back into the fold now.
Yeah. Like, all right, we had enough of you being independent. It clearly didn't work out. We're still fighting Xeon.
We've beaten you how many times at this point? Yeah. Please stop.
She's like, you know what? You lost your right to self-government. I'm sorry. Fight us again if you want, but it's not good. Well, you know how it's going to go.
Yeah. So those are the only three things that were announced as part of that Next 100 project. But I guess I would point out that it was, it is called Next 100, not Next 10 years or 5 years. So I think a lot of people are really hopeful that maybe we will get either a redone F91 or maybe an F91 prequel, because there's a whole series of manga called F90 and Silhouette Formula F91 So that'd
Do
be
you?
that'd be pretty cool. I mean, you love your Crossbone Vanguard, so
I like my Crossbow Vanguard, but do you know anything about F90? I haven't read too much into it.
I've never read it. I think I at one point tried to find some scans of it. I mean, I highly doubt they ever release it here.
Let me ask you this: in F90, do you recollect if they're still slapping around Xeons or early Crossbow Vanguard?
I don't know. Let me look it up
Probably,
here.
right? Who else would it be? They should just do a Gundam F92 or just call it Gundam F and just pick up right after because there's so much to cover between what happened after F91 to get to Crossbone Vanguard. I mean, to get to Crossbone Gundam. You know, you
Yeah,
have to
well,
talk.
add Victory
Yeah.
Gundam is quite a bit after that as well.
Yeah, Victory Gundam is, I don't know, like 30 years after Crossbone?
That sounds right, yeah.
Man, that war went terrible for the Federation too. If you don't keep an eye on those colonies, they can really stomp you.
So in Mobile Suit Gundam F90, which is basically a prequel manga series to Mobile Suit Gundam F91, which was a movie, it looks like it's the Federation versus something called Mars Xeon. So it must be a splinter faction.
Oh, I think I remember now. I remember
They also
reading
call
about
themselves
this.
the Old Mobile Army, which I think is hilarious.
I remember now. Yeah. Okay, they're shooting at I think they're shooting at Earth with a Federation with a like a mass driver that they turn into a weapon that's like on Olympus Mons.
Oh, yep, you're right. It was learned that the Mars Xeons had converted Olympus Mons into a gigantic rail cannon.
Oh, there you go.
That sounds freaking awesome.
I guess, but I'm not too versed on astronomy, but like I imagine they have like a very limited window for certain shots that they can make.
You're probably right, yeah.
Right? Because they have to wait for Earth to be in a certain orbit and then themselves to be in a certain orbit. And then they can only shoot at certain times of the day because Olympus Mons has to be facing Earth.
Yeah, they might only get a few shots per year or something. And
It's
then
not a very good weapon. No.
And I'm sure Mars's orbit isn't, they probably only cross each other every few years. So if they miss, they might be like, we'll try again in 3 years or something.
And does the Federation have like weeks to months to like prepare for the incoming shot?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They can just set up a solar array and like melt whatever weapon they lobbed at them.
It looks like they come back later too. They came back in a video game for the NES.
Man, Xeon are like cockroaches, man. If you see like one and like anything can kill them all, there's like some hiding under like the floorboards, and then they're in the attic or the kitchen or something.
But overall, people are hoping that, assuming these three series go well. Now, granted, I don't think Gundam NT probably hit it out of the park, but I don't really see any way that Hathaway's Flash or the sequel to Unicorn, if it ever comes out, I don't see those failing at all.
Not with diehard fans, no. And visually, depending on how it looks, I think it'll pull in some new people. Because what's good about Hathaway's Flash is that it's going to be almost a standalone story because it's short and is a new character. He doesn't really have piloting experience per se.
Yeah, and I think it could get some looks. Like for example, if they put it on Netflix, a lot of people are going to watch it. So
why not? Yeah,
I think it could get some looks for its content, given the political environment that we currently live in the United States. So there was an article on Anime News Network where Tomino said that he was happy that after 30 years that Hathaway's Flash is going to get animated. But I thought it was pretty interesting what he said. I'm just going to read a little bit from the article. He noted that the theme of the novels is what decisions are necessary for modern society. And because so much time had elapsed since their original publication, he read his work again and found himself surprised. He said the real world hasn't progressed and may even have regressed. Because of all the Gundam fans who gave this story the chance to reemerge, its themes can pierce through society today. This story is kind of about forced immigration and privileged class versus lower class, and that's very, very much alive in today's society. And he was writing about it 30 years ago, and clearly he was thinking that society would have moved on, but he's probably right.
I think he's more right than he thinks because, I mean, God, every Gundam series is always about human conflict. There's inequality. even in something lighthearted like Mobile Fighter G Gundam, there's just so much inequality between the wealthy and the powerful living in the colonies, and then everyone else just living on that polluted, just destroyed Earth. It's just Gundam's very much a mirror to humanity. Yeah, it's an anime about giant robots and stuff, but the themes in it deal with sacrifice, corruption. Oh God, the Federation. It's just when you think they're going to be the good guys, like a series later, they end up showing just how corrupt they are.
Yeah, I would say that the Federation, for the most part, has had the protagonists, but the Federation itself has never been the good guy.
No. It's a very corrupt, even inefficient form of government, but it still manages to attract a lot of the well-meaning people. Not all of them, but
yeah, I guess if you haven't watched a whole lot of Universal Century Gundam, one of the hallmarks I think is just that there's definitely good individuals, but the two sides that you're picking between, neither of them is the good guy, and they're both sort of the bad guy, and you're just sort of choosing one that you think is maybe less bad than the other.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more light gray, very dark gray, as far as comparing the Federation to Zeon. And you can kind of look at Zeon and pretty quickly think, clearly it's, the space Nazis, the space fascists, by the numbers. You look at the Federation and visually they're a little bit more vague as what they are, I guess. You'd kind of be like, oh, are these kind of they're supposed to be NATO or the US or whatever? But no, they're kind of more of what would a corrupt kind of democracy be like if it had power over the Earth, the moon, and all the orbiting colonies? It would be a lot like this, where it's not necessarily always in control, and the military it does have isn't always great, even though they might have a big military, and it's not technically a good democracy. I mean, we don't really hear much about elections in any season.
I never got the sense that there were elections.
No. I don't know how the government runs, but it looks like there's some type of assembly, and I don't think they're elected. Yeah, but there's people in power that make decisions. They wear suits, but you didn't necessarily vote for them. Then. Yeah, you didn't vote for them, and they don't give themselves title like Xeon does, as far as being like dukes or principalities and all that. But you might not have much of a say in the Federation government.
Yeah. I mean, your choices are basically an at times sympathetic and oppressed group of people who are following some fascists versus a corrupt democracy who deports undesirables, and both of which have committed acts of atrocities on each other.
Oh God, who committed the more atrocities? It has to go to Zeon, right?
Probably. I don't know. We'd have to tally him up, but just based on colony drops.
Off the top of our head, Zeon takes the cake.
Yeah.
But man, people fight for the Federation really hard. They'll fight tooth and nail for that corrupt democracy. But then again, people fight, really hard for Zeon, even though it's God, Zeon. It's hard to find people in Zeon that cooperate. Don't try to backstab each other.
They just break off into like small groups that can work together. You got Char and his faction, Gato and his faction, whoever that guy was in 8th MS team. But I can't see them all sitting around a table deciding on an overall plan like that. No, it's just never going to work out.
They'd start killing each other. Selling get poisoned.
And then then apparently you got these other jokers who go to Mars and build a railgun.
Yeah. Oh God, how did they even get there? All right, we gotta take some troops and like a super weapon, and we gotta send it to Mars.
I mean, on its face, it sounds like a great idea. We'll see how it works out for them. So overall, I think Sunrise's plan to make Gundam bigger in the United States basically hinges on this two-pronged strategy, led by the live-action movie to draw in new fans who maybe have never seen Gundam before, as well as continuing, the Universal Century with these sort of high-budget, high-quality adaptations of great material that they just kind of have sitting around. So hopefully it all works out. I think we're on a great path. I think it's a good time to be a Gundam fan, actually. I think streaming has opened up a whole new reason to be hopeful.
It's a great time.
15 years ago, we would have never imagined that we'd finally be getting a Hathaway's Flash adaptation with the potential for even more UC stuff after Char's counterattack.
15 years ago, I wouldn't have thought I'd be able to see Gundam on Netflix in English. This is all great. The exposure from the shows and from movies is going to be, great over the next few years. Yeah.
All right, so is that gonna be our topic for next week? Fan cast, assuming Universal Century.
We'll do the fan cast. What's the one we'll throw to the audience? If you're listening, tell us who you'd like to cast in this Gundam movie. Not everybody. You don't have to do everybody. Just tell us, who you think should play who.
Some highlights,
Yeah.
Your Shars, your Amuros, your Brights, your
Exactly.
Ramba Rouse.
Give us the names, the characters, and the actors and actresses. And we'll go from there.
All right.
All right, everybody. That'll do it for us down here in Side 3. We hope you enjoyed our little update. Don't forget to tell us what you think about Hathaway's Flash and who you would cast in Gundam.
See you in episode 4, everybody.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tune in next time to catch our latest episode of Colony Drop, a Gundam podcast. What would the Gundam cast look like for the Gundam movie? At least your dream cast.
Oh, that's where we play the Sega sound.
Sega!